Whether you're in a neighborhood, on commercial property, or along a busy road, being aware of safety procedures and compliance during pipe installation is essential in order to execute the task successfully. I'm Joe Casilli, one of the owners of utility contractor Casper Colosimo & Son. In this video, we will focus on 3 key areas: employee training, tools and equipment, and job site layout. Key members that make up a pipe installation crew are foreman, equipment operator, pipe layer, top man, and an inspector who's usually employed by the owner of the work. All personnel on site must be qualified to perform their specific job function. For example, only qualified operators and qualified riggers should be used to lift and set both pipe and shoring boxes. The foreman is responsible for the productivity of the job. Equipment operators run the excavator, loader, backhoe, or dozer. The pipe layer is the person in the trench responsible for making sure that the pipe is correctly installed and on proper grade. They are also responsible for directing the operator with proper hand signals during all phases of the pipe installation process. The top man is responsible for all necessary support that the pipe layer may need. For example, tools, prepping pipe, and rigging. There must be at least one designated competent person on every job. This person is responsible for overall safety of the job site and the workers. Each crew member will have a primary and several secondary responsibilities. Be sure that each crew member truly understands each specific task they are responsible for. Certain job site hazards require specific training. For example, confined space, rigging, and pipe cutting. See your supervisor for additional guidance in these areas. Employees are responsible for inspecting their tools, equipment, and personal protective equipment at the beginning of each shift to verify the condition of the equipment. All damaged tools and equipment must be removed from service immediately. When you're working on a road construction site, always wear the following basic protection: a hard hat, sturdy boots with slip-resistant soles, and high-visibility clothing must be worn at all times. Eye and face protection must be worn anytime operations create a hazard of flying particles. A face shield and hearing protection must be worn in addition to safety glasses when performing cutting operations. Hand protection should be worn according to the hazard present. Cut-resistant gloves must be worn when handling materials with sharp edges. All personnel must be trained in the correct operation of tools and equipment they are using. The operator must carefully read and follow any warnings, safety signs, and instructions provided with or located on the equipment. Before beginning to dig any trench or excavation, underground utilities must be identified and marked by the appropriate utility company. Provide appropriate fencing and barricades as per site risk assessment. How you pre-plan the job is important because it affects productivity and safety. Not having the tools you need when you need them slows down the job. Making unnecessary trips to retrieve your materials and equipment only increases the likelihood of an accident. Excavated material, tools, and equipment must be kept a minimum of 2 feet from the edge of the trench or excavation. Provide secure stockpile area for pipes and fittings. Work-zone traffic control is one of the most crucial functions in providing a safe work environment for workers in street and highway construction. Traffic controls for utility construction on highways and road construction work zones must meet the requirements of the Federal Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Guidelines. Utilizing law enforcement personnel can also be an effective means of controlling traffic and reducing speeds throughout the work zone. The time you take to effectively pre-plan your job is time well spent and is absolutely essential in order to execute the task safely and productively. Now let's move on to the safety considerations for excavation, trenching, and manholes. Whether you're in a neighborhood, on commercial property, or along a busy road, being aware of safety procedures and compliance during pipe installation is essential in order to execute the task successfully. I'm Joe Casilli, one of the owners of utility contractor Casper Colosimo & Son. In this video, we will focus on three key areas: excavation, trenching, and manholes. Before beginning to dig any trench or excavation, one-call services must be notified and utilities must be properly marked. One-call services paint lines and flags only to indicate the path of the utility line. It is your crew responsibility to locate the depth. This can be accomplished by hand digging or by using vacuum technology. Trenching and excavation work presents serious hazards to all workers involved. Employers must ensure that workers enter trenches only after adequate protections are in place to address cave-in hazards. Other potential hazards associated with the trenching work include falling loads, hazardous atmospheres, and hazards from mobile equipment. A competent person must inspect all trenches and excavations prior to entry, after any rainfall, or after exposure to vibration or shock. It is the responsibility of the assigned competent person to stop work when a hazard threatens an employee's health or safety, inspect excavations for hazardous conditions including the possibility of cave-ins and protective systems failures before the start of work and as needed, test for hazardous or low oxygen atmospheres, perform inspections to ensure safety of equipment and material, ensure effective water removal operations, determine soil type by appropriate testing. Trenches 5 feet and deeper must be fitted with a protective system to prevent collapsing. Protective systems can include shoring to prevent soil movement, sloping by cutting back the trench wall at an angle of 1.5 feet for every 1 foot of depth based on the soil classifications, shielding such as trench boxes to protect workers and prevent soil cave-ins. Trenches 4 feet and deeper require a ladder to be placed every 25 feet for access and egress. All spoil must be kept at least 2 feet back from the edge of the trench. Prior to entry, do a visible check of the manhole and complete a confined space permit. Ensure that the area is secured and that the standby person is ready at the manhole entrance. Ensure that the atmospheric testing has been completed and the manhole has been properly ventilated. Verify that entrants have prior training and knowledge of known hazards, for example, gases, oxygen deficiencies, and contaminated water. Ensure that all entrants wear proper personal protective equipment, for example, safety glasses, goggles, respirators, rubber gloves. Rescue equipment must also be utilized, for example, fall arrest harness, lanyard, and tripods. Maintain communication with standby person via two-way radio and/or visual contact. Ensure that adequate protection will be sustained during the entry and alert the standby person when a prohibited condition exists. Provide a confined space entry permit for the manhole, sign off and post upon completion. Always remember, when an area is considered to be a confined space, the trench or manhole must be tested for oxygen content, flammable and explosive atmospheres, and toxic gases before entry is approved. Increased safety awareness and properly identifying hazards to reduce risk in the excavation, trenching, and manhole process will help your crew work together more safely and productively. Now let's move on to the safety considerations for working with the pipe and site restoration. Whether you're in a neighborhood, on commercial property, or along a busy road, being aware of safety procedures and compliance during pipe installation is essential in order to execute the task successfully. I'm Joe Casilli, one of the owners of utility contractor Casper Colosimo & Son. In this video, we'll focus on three key areas: pipe cutting, rigging and material handling, and site restoration. Secure both the machinery and the pipe. Always keep in mind that the support must be provided before and after the cut is performed. The saw operator must carefully read and follow any warnings, safety signs, and instructions provided with or located on the equipment. A face shield and hearing protection must be worn in addition to safety glasses when performing cutting operations. Cut-resistant gloves must be worn when handling materials with sharp edges. Saws must be inspected for defects and operated and maintained in accordance with manufacturer's recommendations. Check for damaged cords, loose blades, faulty guards, defective trigger, chipped or missing teeth, cracked or damaged casing. The cutting process creates burrs and sharp edges on the ends of the pipe. Handle the cut pipe carefully. And remember, wet cutting is the most effective method for controlling silica dust generated during sawing because it controls exposure at its source. Whenever possible, concrete cutting equipment should be fitted with collection devices to eliminate generated dust at the source. All lifting equipment must be inspected before being used. Defective or unsafe equipment must be removed from service and tagged with "Do Not Use" tags. Only use rigging with adequate capacity. The rigging must be secure and the load properly balanced before it is moved. Barricade accessible areas of the swing radius. Taglines must be used to control swinging loads. Hands must be kept clear of pinch points while the slack is being taken up on the load. Hands and feet must not be placed under material being raised or lowered. Never stand or work under suspended load. Only a qualified operator, qualified rigger, and qualified signal person should be used to manage lifts. Use only maintained equipment fitted with flashing lights and backup alarms. Never work under suspended loads, and spotter must be in place when equipment is in motion and during lifts. And remember, if you can't see the operator, they can't see you. Overhead and underground electrical power lines must be located, identified, and avoided. Warning signs and flags identifying overhead lines must be in place, and designate a spotter to observe clearance between the equipment and the power lines. Precautions must be taken to ensure potential risks to the public are minimized. Measures should be established to restrict public access to the job site. Install perimeter fencing where practical. If access control is not possible, items that may create a hazard should be locked, barricaded, or removed. Display reflective signs and/or lights as necessary. Provide distinct routes for pedestrians and traffic to safely pass. Additional hazards to consider include open excavations, holes and openings, machinery and vehicles, dust, access to hazardous or flammable materials, and equipment when unattended. Before leaving the site at the end of the shift, ensure that excavations are backfilled, holes are covered, and that fencing, barricades, and signage are placed near the work zone. Increase safety awareness and properly identifying hazards to reduce risk when pipe cutting, rigging, and restoring the job site will help your crew work together more safely and productively.